The Trinity of Fundamentals, Chapter 1, Part 2. What was achieved at the beginning of the 1980s was meager but nevertheless promising. The activities of the dispersed nuclei of the party, consisting of university students, intellectuals, and some workers, began to be organized under a somewhat unified resolution, even if they were not yet within an integrated party network. In this way, the party in the homeland was like a toddler on all fours, learning to walk upright. The party paper was being published, albeit haphazardly, and focused on directing and discussing organizational policy. One could see the buds of the student and women's unions sprouting in the universities, institutions, and cities, while party activities among the large arena of rural workers were still in their infancy. These union organizations had begun to replace committees of volunteers which, since the mid-1970s, had been one of the only channels for recruiting, politicizing, and mobilizing activists towards party activities. The party worked with these union organizations, seeing them as instruments for expanding among the masses without any serious focus on their syndical programs and tasks. The pursuit of that goal, a unified party organization in the homeland with a constructive outlook and with popular, political, and media branches engaged in resistance activities, was a multi-pronged effort. It required the party to prevent the disruption of the accumulation of institutionalized knowledge which would occur as a result of the arrest of party members. It also imposed upon the party the need to grow the professional cadre of leaders who would be dedicated exclusively to dealing with the party's problems and the struggle. Indeed, there can be no revolutionary party without a professional team. There was a firm conviction that the party would be built not by amateurs, but by professionals who would collectively shoulder the responsibility of coping with the problems facing the revolution from beginning to end. In 1982, developments in the struggle against the occupation tended in that same direction. That year, the occupation dealt a strong military blow against the revolution, which had demonstrated a heroic resistance by any standard. As a result, the revolution was forced to halt its military activities in Lebanon, which had served as its most important base, and to evacuate thousands of its fighters to the outer regions of the Arab world. This brought the significance of the occupied territories to the forefront, a notion that gained widespread popularity overnight due to the realization that poor political decisions had, thus far, neglected the homeland as a viable base from which to build a resistance front. Up until that point, the party had been resigned to treat the occupied territories as no more than an important site, rather than as a principal arena for resistance. The party's policy had emphasized setting up small groups of fedayeen who were quickly liquidated either before they became active or shortly thereafter. This strategy was not aimed at building a popular organizational and political structure as a bulwark of the national resistance's military action. It initially originated due to the fact that the revolution had erupted outside the country and was compelled to fight constant battles to protect its sheer existence. This eventually meant that efforts in the homeland itself fell short, part of which was also the result of the underdevelopment of Palestinian political thought and its immaturity in organizational matters and in creating modes of resistance. The resistance had to wait until the 1980s for the political organizations to begin competing against one another to mold that organizational structure. The military defeat in 1982 should have set off proverbial alarm bells, signaling the importance of the occupied territories for building the structure of resistance and the need to consider the homeland as the primary arena of struggle. In 1975, Kenan's party had attempted to build such a developed structure, but using an approach that lacked an administrative scientific party methodology. This led to the enemy's intelligence wiping out that weak new experiment in 1976 through a comprehensive campaign of repression. Dozens were arrested, and the weak, inefficient organizations, unable to defend themselves, were broken up. On June 1st, 1976, Mohammed Youssef al-Khawaja was martyred at the hands of Israeli intelligence operatives while defending his organization in the interrogation cells of Ramallah prison. By the end of the 1970s, a new attempt at party restructuring was made, but this time using a different methodology, one which viewed the building of the party as a political organizational program rather than an administrative one. In that context, the methodology focused on two needs: the need for a professional team and the need for self-preservation through protecting essential connections outside of prison and consolidating party traditions as an educational environment for the formation of a coordinated character of the party. Canaan received his letter from the party containing its decision while he was staying in a house near the university waiting for Muna's class to end. He had hid himself between the narrow walls, leaving behind him all of those noisy debates of student life on topics ranging from the Israeli invasion of Lebanon to the commemorations of December. Since the 4th of June, the university was no longer what it had once been. Its walls were covered with all sorts of posters, provocative slogans, communiques about the results of battles, and notices about activities in solidarity with the prisoners. The Israeli slogan, "Saboteurs, stop and think," had no effect whatsoever on the political and moral disposition of students. Neither did the empty bravado of Menachem Begin, Ariel Sharon, and the enemy's military leaders, who threatened the liquidation of the saboteurs in 48 hours. Each organization on campus took on commenting and acting as it saw fit, but the propaganda and solidarity efforts of the organizations were soon unified under the supervision of the student union. As for the students, that body of humanity dizzied by tireless and endless discussions, they were transformed overnight into experts on military affairs. One person would issue an assessment on Israel's military capabilities and its combat formations, and another would explain the use of guerrilla warfare tactics by the resistance. And a third even had the audacity to give his 2 cents concerning the distribution of combat units across fronts due to his extensive knowledge about the geography of Beirut and its suburbs. In war, all the spectators turn into military analysts, just as all patients in a hospital become doctors, and all assistant attorneys become lawyers, and all detainees become court experts and crime scene investigators. Students were caught between the intentionally demoralizing Israeli military propaganda and the overly optimistic propaganda of the Palestinian factions. Student opinion coalesced around the latter, building new aspirations on top of the old, turning the Palestinian resistance into an invincible force and the Israeli military machine into a paper tiger. But after 3 months, the brave fighters defending the honor of the Arab nation were forced to exit Beirut with their small arms and light weapons, while Yasser Arafat and the Palestinian leadership placed their confidence in the promises of the American envoy Philip Habib, who negotiated withdrawal. The result was twofold. On the one hand, the spirit of the revolution and the bulk of its fighters were saved, and on the other, an Israeli phalangist massacre of Palestinian refugees in Sabra and Shatila occurred, in which the heads and limbs of women, old men, and children were hacked off and cast into the mud in the alleys of the two camps. The students and the people at large were not shaken by the military defeat and the withdrawal. Wherever one went, whomever one asked, the opinion of the masses, students, and the public alike confirmed this. May God give them health and strength. They did what was expected of them, and more. They were under siege for 84 days, and possibly more, fighting the 6th largest military power in the world, while the Arabs watched idly. Who else fought like they did? Our regimes claim to be nationalist and amass weapons, yet when the hour of battle is at hand, they say, "We will choose the time and place of the battle and will not allow the Israelis to choose for us." They forget that a soldier does not always have a choice as to when and where to fight, otherwise there would never have been wars in the first place. The Israelis are liars. They surely lost thousands of troops. The withdrawal of 11,000 combatants is not such a big deal. In Lebanon, even children carry RPGs. The revolution is still alive there. Now the secret armed resistance will begin. The Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine, the Lebanese Communist Party, and the Communist Action Organization have announced the formation of the National Lebanese Resistance Front and have begun to fight. They will transform Lebanon into a new Vietnam. The people and the students did not understand the dangerous political consequences of the blow to the Palestinian Liberation Organization's military infrastructure. These consequences soon found expression in the Reagan Plan, which was announced directly following the Palestinian withdrawal. The popular forces turned away from the plan as they rightly saw it as the political aftermath of the military outcome, while the official leadership of the PLO declared its flirtatious middle-of-the-road position within the logic of yes and no. About 5 months after the withdrawal, the party issued a circular emanating from its Central Committee meeting, which took up, among other things, the issue of the occupied territories. It made quick references to the future role entrusted to the occupied territories after the destruction of the PLO's infrastructure in a way that kept with the trends of building a united and solid organizational infrastructure in the homeland. Canaan was on pins and needles as he waited for Muna. He felt as though her class lecture had taken an entire decade. What would she do? Ever since he received instructions from the party to take precautions, the insistent question badgered him. How would she react? Thinking about her evoked memories of the 3 years they spent together. They met for the first time in 1979. He first laid eyes on her while he was giving a talk on Jimmy Carter's visit to the region. He could not stop looking at her. His words gushed out of his mouth in stutters and stammers, flustering him more than he already was. She looked at him from among the rows of listeners. Her gaze pierced into him, but her mind was not focused on what he was saying. "What's her name?" "Muna," his friend replied. "Does she have a phone number?" "I don't know. I'll check the lists of club members." That same day, Canaan called and asked her to meet him. "How did it occur to you to invent the ploys you used in order to talk to me? Didn't you consider that I might say no?" she asked him, shyness and hesitation gripping her from head to the tips of her toes. He was in no better shape than she was. Nevertheless, nature's logic and magnetic pull pushed all obstacles aside. They were sitting on the edge of a water fountain in the garden of the club. Her blue jeans and white shirt showed off her captivating, svelte form. "I wanted to see you and talk to you. I have been thinking about you ever since I first saw you. But your eyes were also calling out to me, weren't they?" She was too shy to reply. They changed the subject of their conversation to something innocuous, a topic here, a reference there. He uttered whatever words spilled out of his mouth, trying to banish the shy silence which had descended upon them. They approached each other like toddlers, not yet having learned how to advance upright, knowing only how to crawl. On Tuesdays, Canaan would finish the last class at the secondary school and hurry home. Then he would bathe, shave, dress quickly, and set off for the university to meet her at 2 o'clock. For a whole year, every Tuesday was their day. He would usually find her sitting with other students next to the door of the snack bar, waiting for him but not showing it. She would join in the conversation with those around her from time to time while looking at the passageway where he would appear. He would arrive and sit down, and she would continue to act as if no one had just entered. Her shyness about her emotions and a thrilling fear of these new feelings took root inside of her. We've been meeting for months. Tuesday is our sacred day. But you? Where are you?" "What do you mean? You come and find me here," she said, embarrassed. "Is that so?" The more he continued to meet her, the more attached he grew. He found her shyness to be a captivating grace. Her fear resulted from her isolation and her life experiences, and his role was to challenge that. Her yearning for him would shatter the bottleneck. Desire could not be suppressed forever. "I brought you a book. I can explain anything you may find confusing. The guys here explain a lot of things to me. I read and pay attention to what is going on for your sake." At that time, the university served as a hub for nationalist actions in the occupied territories. Everything was politicized. Union activity, social relations, even the gathering of a few students to study together. The students clustered around organizations that were engaged in a heated struggle for the hearts and minds of the youth in an atmosphere of democratic and intellectual competition among varying agendas and opinions. The university's policy of wide support for the students proved transformative, shifting the entire setting from that of an educational establishment for the children of the bourgeoisie to a learning institution that attracted hundreds of residents of refugee camps and the rural areas each year, the children of the popular classes. This shift sped up the process of politicization even more. The political organizations belonging to the resistance movement quickly capitalized on this trend, sending tens of freed political prisoners to form secret organizational cells which then spread like wildfire among the students. Clusters of unions began to appear, fronts for the political organizations that later changed into democratic student organizations. Birzeit University was not only a hotbed of resistance and political organization, it was also an example of a modern and enlightened society that was not closed in on itself. The university was open to new ideas and the free exchange of opinions, a society in which the full spectrum of ideologies, the nationalist bourgeoisie, the leftists, the religious, the communists, even the Trotskyites, had someone to carry their banner, even if the ideology itself had no followers. And the anarchists, who were enamored with lifelong chaotic European lines of thought, flocked together like a clique which elicited nothing other than annoyance. The annual election season on campus brewed an environment of stormy political developments, and arguments and disputes would break out when, for example, a banned book was distributed or a communique from a leader was read aloud. Although the practices of the university's student movement were impetuous, this did not nullify the dominant characteristic of the learning establishment as a sanctuary for nationalist struggle and the democratic arena for intellectual dispute. The university provided fertile soil for the formation of a stream of politicized and militant students who could be relied upon to play a future role in the makeup of the party and the politics of the people. Those who lived in and devoted themselves to this atmosphere at the university during the early 1980s were fortunate. The rebels lived within its walls, battling against the occupation and against convention, such that their lives were a medley filled with secret organizational affiliations: love, the songs of Sheikh Imam and Marcel Khalif, the books of Lenin, Nawal al-Saadawi, Hisham Sarabi, and Che Guevara, and a student lifestyle that contradicted all traditions, even if it was just for the sake of being contradictory. Little by little, Canaan tried to attract Muna to this environment as an alternative to her schooling and rearing by nuns, women who dedicated themselves solely to the hereafter and not to this world. It was also an alternative to her family, which, like most Palestinian families, provided circumstances propitious for nothing other than the crushing and marginalizing of personalities. But Muna was moving in his direction, albeit very slowly, and held back by an immense fear. They sat on one of the stone benches under an evergreen cypress tree in the courtyard of the classroom building. It was as though the bench was reserved for lovers. In fact, it was widely accepted as such. Seldom did anyone have the cheek to question this and transgress the established ownership of those seats. He used to call them the seats of rebellion against convention. "You are not your usual self," he said while gazing into her sleepy eyes. "What do you mean?" she asked with a dazzling smile. "You are radiant and smiling all over." "I'm happy. I missed you. I've been waiting for Tuesday. I would come every day if I could. You know I have school until noon, and afterwards I'm busy with my affairs." "You are a party member, aren't you?" She said it quickly with no preliminaries, as though she was talking about something routine and simple, not something whose discovery could lead to years in prison. "How did you know? I never shared any of my affiliations with you. You only know my convictions. I understand what's going on around me. I don't need you to reveal things to me." He had spoken to her about the party often, without acknowledging that he was a member. She supported the party in its activities and positions. Women in the party paid attention to her. They sat and discussed things with her as Canaan had asked them to do. "When I think of you, I fear for the future. My family will not approve of my relationship with someone like you. You are known to them. Ever since you visited my brother, he changed. He began to listen to Sheikh Imam and to buy books. My father says, Canaan is like a germ. He brought Lenin into my house." She imitated her father's voice as she said this. Then she laughed and followed it up with a question. "Since when have you been listening to Sheikh Imam anyway?" "Ever since I became one of those Workers of the World Unite people in 1975. Anyway, it is too early for you to think about how your family feels. We have years of studying before us, and then we'll see. Don't anticipate calamities before they occur. I'm with you. Do not be afraid of anything." She looked at him with concern and changed the subject. "Many of the new students support you. I try to sway some of them too." "Support you? I thought you were one of us. Why do you try to sway them if you are not one of us?" He teased her disapprovingly. She fell silent, embarrassed. "You know I love you. I've said it more than once. We've been spending time together for a year now, and I find that there is a lot between us, yet you haven't spoken openly about your feelings even once. I'm scared. Don't be annoyed with me. Don't get agitated. Please, we are together here in the university. We are always together. What more do you want?" "What more?" Canaan could not control his emotions. "I have the right to know how you feel, where you stand. Are we joined together by something special or not?" "Joined together," she said it finally. "On what basis?" It was as though he was pleading with her, trying to extract a confession of her love for him. "On whatever basis you want," she said it in a low stammer. She had admitted it finally, maybe not with her words, but with her actions. He smiled and touched her hand under the table in the restaurant. A shudder of buried desire ran through their bones. "Here's the underground newspaper. Burn it as soon as you are done reading it. Don't let anyone see it." Muna stuck it in her book bag, and they walked towards their seat under the cypress tree. "Do you think you will succeed in the negotiations to form a united national front?" He gave her an angry look, which she did not understand. "I will overlook the fact that you said you will succeed instead of we, as though you belong to a world different from ours. We will succeed in the end. There is no other option. It would be a disgrace if the PLO did not control the student union. A victory for the Islamic bloc would mean the paralysis of the student union and would prevent it from clashing with the occupation authorities, seeing as the Islamic political trend has yet to engage in the struggle so far. As usual, the real fight is between us and Fatah. The influence of the communists has waned, and the Democratic Front is too small. Even if the decision has to be delegated to George Habash and Yasser Arafat, we can't allow any organization other than the PLO to gain control of the council." "Where did the Islamic bloc come from?" she asked derisively. "They have popular support as one of the already established movements, but the bloc relies too heavily on money from Saudi Arabia and the Muslim World League. The money comes to them through Jordan with the knowledge of the Jordanian government. From there, it reaches the Islamic collective in Gaza with the knowledge of the Israelis, who turn a blind eye. That is the Islamic bloc's payoff for opposing the resistance in the PLO and the left. Have you read the book they distributed recently, Nationalism and How It Is Understood? No, the students burned the copies they sent us in the courtyard. They haven't redistributed it since. Naturally, they will not redistribute it. It's causing a scandal for them. It was stupid to distribute it in the first place. They consider nationalism to be an animal instinct that we adapted from the Western Crusaders. As for Palestine, the book says it is a dot on the map, barely visible, and God grants it to whomever he chooses. Of course, there is the influence of Iran's revolution, our shortcomings, and the policies of Abu Ammar. These factors created fertile soil on which the Islamic bloc can exist. As long as they do not fight against the occupation, they will remain isolated and suspect. They become dangerous when they threaten Palestinian unity. We have to take that into consideration. The university is a lofty, educational, democratic, and modern edifice. We cannot afford to forfeit the student union to those who adopt ideas such as a Crusader administration, the separation of male from female students in the cafeteria and lecture halls and laboratories, elimination of the cultural studies program, and the rest of that nonsense that does not belong in this day and age. We will find a way. We will examine the university statutes, registration, and find a way. Muna had been horrified to receive a warning that she may be expelled from the university, and Kanan was trying to comfort her. She cried with her head on his shoulder as they sat in his house. Her political interests in union activity, which were limited anyway, were catching up to her and hurting her grades. Like many others, she could not balance her political activities with her studies. She had changed her major, and now, threatened with expulsion, was at risk of drifting to a third major. She couldn't handle that, especially considering she had earned an 86 in the high school diploma exam. My political activities at the university have hurt my academic record. Many others are more politically active than you and have taken on many responsibilities, yet they still made the honors list. My affairs are all upside down, she said, lamenting her bad luck. We will find a way, don't worry. Tomorrow you should go ask for a copy of the university's bylaws and study them carefully. The important thing is that you should put your affairs in order so that we can go celebrate Labor Day at the Umaria School in Jerusalem. I'm worried we won't get back till late. Find a way to convince your parents to stay out late. Tell them you will be studying at the library. Muna went to the celebration and came home late. A week later, she chose a third major and managed to salvage her academic career. Politics could not find a way to preoccupy Muna's thoughts, where resistance activity only had a superficial influence, like lipstick. She remained connected to politics and resistance because of her relationship with Kanan and in keeping with the dominant fashion at the time. One had to be categorized in some way or the other as belonging to this group or that group. There was no floating middle ground. She was Kanan's girlfriend, and he was known to her and her acquaintances, so of course she was part of his group. As a matter of principle, she subscribed to the dominant social norm that women were subordinate to men. Women adopted the way of life of their men, regardless of their ways of life that existed around them. A woman who broke with this norm was an exception, nothing more. Muna could not be an exception considering the amount of defiance, strength, independence, and individualism it took to do so. 3 types of political commitment characterize the behavior of students. The first type of commitment is deeply rooted in an ideological conviction. Such commitment survives in its own owner beyond university life as they join broader society. The second type of commitment is dependent on the current fashion, which emerges from tumultuous university life and the clamor for novelty. This terrain created ripe conditions for the emergence of this second type, branded by the ideologically committed students of the first type as revolution until graduation. The third type of commitment results from dependence on a loved one, friend, or relative, and therefore takes a variety of possible trajectories. Their commitment persists after graduation. Because their relationship of dependence persists, their commitment is transformed by experience into an ideological commitment, or they end up subject to the second type, revolution, until graduation. How did I lose my mind and fall in love with you? What possessed me to attend your talk 3 years ago today? Muna was already asking herself these questions, but actually said the words out loud as she resignedly laid her head on his shoulder. He had one hand on her neck while the languid fingers of the other traced the features of her face with delight, like they were discovering them for the first time. He would sink into languor like a pianist gently playing a delicate tune while he imagined himself soaring in infinite space. That day they acted as though there was no one else in the world. They were joined by love and laughter and kisses and wine, like children resuming their harmonious play after a quarrel. In her, Canaan found refuge from politics and the party that hideouts and newspaper clippings and arguments. She was a haven from studies and books and endless exams. In him, Muna found refuge from crushing authoritarian supervision and from the words of the nuns, her teachers, which were etched into her memory, words that rang the rusty alarm bell to beware of sin whenever her desire welled up inside her. They both found escape in the warmth of a feverish embrace, a secret delight in the hours they managed to snatch each week. He would turn his back on his world full of tiring daily details, while she would smash the alarm bell in her mind that warns against sin. They lived for a few hours each week as though there was no one else in the world. Each would bring out the inner child in the other so that only nature remained. Everything comes from nature and everything returns to her, even if only for a few despairing hours. Love entering our lives is madness. We have been stricken by it. In our life, resistance is madness, and to be alive as human beings means to be mad. And there is nothing more perfect than insane resistance. He kissed her passionately. Canaan waited for her by the window of his house until her lectures ended and she came to him. It had been a week since he last saw her, on the day they raided his house. For a week he bounced from house to house to escape their eyes and their raids as he waited for the party to make arrangements for his shelter. For a week he missed her incessantly every second. For a week he yearned for her daily, desiring her with his mind, his whole being, and all his senses. He would ask about her just to set his mind at ease. She had been officially involved with him for months now, something which the whole city and her acquaintances in the student body knew. Muna came to him breathing hard, her face ripe with longing. She was in a hurry as though she feared losing him and missing her date with him forever. They embraced for a long time, and he squeezed her slim waist forcefully between his hands. He kissed her earnestly. "I miss you terribly, you rascal," she reprimanded him gently. "Why do you do that to me? As usual, you don't care about your beloved." Canaan sat her down next to him, stroking her hair and embracing her. She laid her head on his shoulder, contentedly. "I couldn't see you for your sake and mine. Don't forget that I'm a wanted man. Every step I take has to be calculated." "How did you spend the last week?" she asked gently, revealing her sympathy, her hand on his chest. "Moving here and there, from house to the other, avoiding surveillance and raids." "How long will this last?" she asked seriously. "Until certain arrangements are finalized." "What do you mean, certain arrangements? When will I see you again?" She fired her questions at him, beset by confusion. "I mean a fixed and secret safe house, known only to a few and difficult to reach. As for our next meeting, it depends on what your position is with regards to my new status." She raised her head from his shoulder and sat up straight. "I don't understand anything. A fixed safe house they cannot reach? My position? Your new status? What are all these riddles?" Canaan knew that it would not be easy to explain these things to her. She would not be able to digest what he had to tell her in any case. He anticipated the end of the conversation would mark the end of his love and their relationship. He tried to make her understand gently, without shocking her. He tried to explain to her that she had to accept a 180-degree change in the course of her relationship with him, because his life had turned 180 degrees. But how could he do it? He tried to say what had to be said. He leaned towards her and gently kissed her forehead. Muna, please understand me well. There will be a fundamental change in my life and our lives together as a consequence. I will not turn myself in. I will be living a secret life. I don't want the enemy to neutralize my potential. There is no point in my going to prison. My role has been decided. In my new life, I see you as more than a friend and more than a lover. I see you as everything. I see you as a support for me, like I am a support for you. She was stunned, her mouth wide open, listening to his words, not believing what she had just heard. It pained him to see her beautiful face contorted like this. He was being torn apart, but he knew that he was doing the right thing. His rational mind said, one could only do what is right, regardless of the catastrophic consequences. I don't understand. Why you in particular? Everyone turns themselves in. Is a confession made against you such a big deal? I don't understand. Where am I in your plans? Why are you neglecting me? You are not the only one who will not understand what is going on, he thought. No one who knows me will understand. None of my friends will understand. I do not blame you, my love. What I am about to undergo will be a new experience. I myself do not understand what the details will be. I excuse you because what I am about to undergo is incomprehensible, mad even. The issue is not the magnitude of the confession made against me, big or small. It is a matter of choosing a life dedicated to resistance, a life out of their sight and their prisons, a new path and experience. As to why me in particular, that is the result of the progression of their campaign of attack. It reached me in a way that I didn't expect. I do not decide how their arrests and confessions should go. There is a first time for everything. Consider me the first. What about me? Muna yelled bitterly as her tears began to flow. What about our plans? Completing my education, marriage, the children you want to play with? Did you forget all that? Did you forget we are engaged? Am I to tie my fate to the unknown? He wiped her tears with his thumb. He held her face between his palms and drew her face to him. You are in my heart and in my mind. You are Muna who made me stammer when I first saw you. I latched onto you the minute I laid eyes on you. We shall remain together. You are mine and I am yours. I shall be an unknown for the occupiers and for the world, but I shall be present for you. We shall meet in love and live. Our plans will be put on hold. We are not the first couple to encounter the stubbornness of fate, but our love will be unconventional. There won't be anything like it. Didn't you always want a unique love and an extraordinary relationship, an experience unlike any other? I can't. What about my family and society? She continued through her tears. Please don't cry, he went on, joking with her. As usual, you try to influence my stance with your tears. You know I can't stand to see you cry. He tried to stop her from choking up and to lighten the atmosphere created by their discussion. I can't. What shall I tell my family? Even without this, they hate you. You are a political radical, but they had finally accepted that. However, if you go into hiding, what could I tell them? Their pressures will consume me. Put your family aside for once. Make a decision without the sword of your family dangling over your head. I am here, so is the party, and so are the comrades. We will support you against the pressures of your family. What more do you want? Tell them one thing. He is my fiancé. When he comes out into the open, we will get married. You oversimplify things. You have grown accustomed to doing that with me. You make light of problems more than you should. You habitually simplify what is complicated. Well, to be consistent with my habitual self, I say, things are simple, but that depends on your willpower and decision. Arm yourself with determination, and that will make the impossible possible. I can't. Yes, you can, he said feverishly as he kissed her forehead and wiped away the tears. How long are you going to be leading this secret life, to be missing, until Palestine is liberated? I don't know. At any rate, It is far too soon to ask that question. Say 1 year, 2 years, 100 even, but don't say you don't know. Am I going to go on living like this, knowing nothing about my future with you? Lighten my burden a little, at least talk about how long it might take. It is not in my power to decide how long. Believe me, if I could, I would. I just can't. I won't deceive you by saying 1 or 2 years and then ignoring that number. The party's needs, my abilities, the resources of the party, our situation in general, these are what will decide the outcome. I don't control the variables and the unknowns. What about me and my future? Your future is with me. We are tied together. That is our future. Whether we get married in 1 or 2 or 10 years is secondary. The important thing is that we have a binding relationship. Isn't that our future? This is not what we agreed. We were going to get married in 2 years. You have abandoned me. Let's stop talking because this conversation will never end. The one who gives up on the other in their hour of need is the one who abandons the other. Love is meaningless if one doesn't support one's lover in the time of his or her difficulties. You love me in the time of peace and run away in the time of conflict. Don't talk to me about abandonment. You knew very well what the resistance means to me. I am not some amateur. I never knew things would go this far. You're crazy, and my misfortune is that I fell in love with you. Is it my fault that you have set a ceiling for my resistance activities? Personally, if I felt that a ceiling was being built above me, I would tear it down immediately. I refuse any limits to my partisanship. There should be no upper limit to my struggle. I can't. I love you, but I can't. You have to decide, me or the party. He restrained himself so that he would not yell in her face. It took an effort for him to speak quietly. Be a little more humble. Don't be stupid. Who are you in the final analysis to place yourself on one side of the scales and the party on the other? The party consists of thousands of resistance fighters, thousands of detainees, thousands of martyrs. The party has a historic mission. Much blood has been shed. Would you put yourself on the same level of sacrifice as that? If our relationship has to end, let's do it calmly and not abuse each other. You have a choice. I understand the reasons for it, and at the same time, I don't. I have made a choice. I hope you will understand it, and that you will really let the understanding sink in. I am not the girl for you. Let the party marry you off to a resistance fighter. She would be able to withstand your life and your choices. She finished in a sarcastic tone, hiding her resentment over his choice. He hugged her at the door, kissing her quickly before parting. I'm not saying goodbye. Let us say, till we meet again. She nodded her head in agreement. Keep this engagement ring for the sake of remembrance. He tore it off his finger and gave it to her. Contemplate your choices in life. I fear you may pay a high price for decisions that are not well calculated. He said those final words, sensing that she would wrap herself in a cocoon, a traditional lifestyle which would not be suitable for her as an educated woman, pitying her for her depressing decision, for choosing maritable stability and respectability at the expense of her love and her lover. Her eyes teared up again when they reached the door, and he had to fight to keep from shedding a tear. He quickly opened the door, and she went through it and out of his life. He sat on the couch, not knowing what to do. Tonight he would go to the safe house. He pulled out the letter from the party once again. Measures, precautions, requirements, and rules. He had heard about them. The party had spoken to him repeatedly about them. The letter contained condensed words, abstract, deaf words, dry words fitting for a report. At the time, Canaan did not understand their real meaning, how they would become concrete in his daily life and seared into his skin. That would be months later. He would suffer for months before those words revealed their full meaning, until they would be fleshed out, the tangible reality of his days and hours. Then and only then would he comment. Talking about it is one thing, living it is another. When he read that clear and harsh order in the letter, do not receive any guests, do not visit anyone, he was overcome by the sweet taste of adventure, its uniqueness, its distinctiveness. He saw himself as strong, wily, and capable, challenging an entire system. They will search and search, and they will not find him. His secret measures would be masterful. No one will know anything about him except a few trusted people, which will make the occupation dizzy. Finally, they will stop. They will surrender. What could be more delightful than the defeat of the organization that has always boasted its successes in breaking up secret cells in the homeland? He received the keys to the safe house and set out on his journey. In the evening, in an isolated street far from the noise, a secret meeting took place with a comrade who introduced himself using the code word previously agreed upon in the last letter. The meeting did not last long. As is customary in such meetings, brevity was the order of the day. A word and a response sufficed. Here's the address. Everything is ready in the house, clothing, food, and a small radio. The owner of the house, Isa, likes to stick her nose in everything. She personifies the gray-haired old lady. She must not see you. Do not open the door if she knocks. Ignore her. If she asks questions, we will take care of it. We will bring you a TV set in a few days. It will be useful to you. Read and write. Do nothing except read and write. Take care of your health and remain well nourished. We will go into your mission and your duties later. The important thing now is that your name should be forgotten. His name would not be easily forgotten. They had been looking for him for a week. They had been carrying out daily raids on his family home. They had threatened them, warning, if he does not turn himself in tomorrow, we will find him and kill him. If he tries to cross the border, we will arrest him or kill him and take him off your hands. We have his picture, and no one sneaks across our borders. Convince him to turn himself in so that you do not lose him. Their raids were adding to the anxiety his mother was already feeling. She did not reply, save for the sentences she repeated on the occasion of every raid. I don't know where to reach him to convince him of anything. Only he knows what he is doing. When you find him, let me know. As usual, she was composed and brave. They put checkpoints at the entrances to the university and closely checked students' ID cards and raided their houses, hoping to catch him. But he was smarter than they were. He knew they were looking for him, so he avoided the places they were raiding, or that they may be watching. They resorted to tricks to learn where he was and to arrest him. One evening, following daily raids on his home, his poor widowed mother, who had to suffer because of his mission, heard a knock on the door. She opened the door and found a woman who looked over 50, bent over and clad in a traditional black thobe. The woman asked without raising her head or looking at her, Is this the house of Canaan? It is. Who are you and what do you want? His worried mother asked. Hurry to him, my sister. He is bleeding in the stomach. God knows if you will reach him in time to see him or if he will die before you reach him. Hurry to him. Tense and affected, she spat out these words in rapid fire in Canaan's mother's face, quickly turning her back and descending down the stairs in front of the house. The horror story hit his mother like a bolt of lightning, and her limbs began to quake. Not knowing what to do, she quickly walked out of the house, not headed in any particular direction. They were following her with their eyes in their cars, a military patrol and a car carrying an intelligence officer. They assumed she would go to check on her son, based on yet another assumption, that she knew where he was hiding. His mother was in fact walking aimlessly while they were tailing her. She decided to go to the house of a family friend to tell them her worries. After hearing her story and knowing her pain, one of the family members sympathetically and decisively reassured her. I don't know how his people go about their business, but I am confident of one thing. They would not hesitate to inform you should something bad happen to him, God forbid. Most likely that woman's story was concocted by their intelligence services to put you on edge as a family. Rest assured, personally, that woman's story doesn't sit well with me anyway. Perhaps his mother only needed a few quiet, encouraging words in a moment free of tension to regain control over her thoughts. Her memory began to stir, and from its recesses, a picture began to form of the intelligence officer who had come to arrest Canaan a few days earlier. It's him, she shouted as she discovered the connection. He was the woman who came today, the intelligence officer who came earlier. He kept his head down so that I could not see his face, but I caught a glimpse of his eyes for a moment. They were his eyes, it was his body frame, it was him. May God punish them. I was about to collapse out of fear for Canaan. It was Ronnie, that intelligence officer, disguised as a woman. Following his quick meeting with his friend, Canaan moved rapidly down a long street lined with trees, cloaked by the darkness of night, and headed to the safe house. He looked closely at the few passers-by, imagining they were all assigned to chase after him and follow his trail. They were wrapped in heavy winter clothing for protection from the December cold and rain. Their clothes covered their heads and in some cases their faces, which increased his suspicions that they were following him. He did not go directly to the house, deliberately taking detours to make sure he did not have a tail, going from one empty alley to the other, keeping his head covered with his spotted red keffiyeh, which he had grown accustomed to wearing for protection from the cold and from prying eyes. He kept a lit cigarette in his mouth, which kept the fingers of his right hand in his throat warm. He was still taken by the delight of this adventure, its uniqueness and distinctiveness. This was the era of those who thought nothing of turning themselves in to the occupier. To them it was quite ordinary. No one criticized this act or thought it brought shame to those who did it. Those who did not turn themselves in sought to flee across the border, either to escape a confrontation or to change the arena of resistance. Those who chose to remain embedded among the people were very few indeed, yet the people knew nothing about them. They were the unknown soldiers in advanced positions about whom the occupation knew nothing. He was devoted to the third option, to be implanted here among his people. When Canaan received the party's invitation to lead a secret life, it wasn't only the thirst for adventure that convinced him to accept. He was also motivated by a deep conviction that in the final analysis there was only one true course of action. The party needed resistance fighters, so the right thing to do was not to turn oneself in. He did not over-rationalize the decision. He did not turn it over in his mind constantly. Excessive calculation tended to sap determination and tie down initiative. Activism is an alternative to dormancy, apathy, and compromise. A revolutionary never fits in or surrenders. He rebels. What kind of revolutionary fears adventure? Since when was revolutionary action truly revolutionary if it was completely sane and devoid of adventure? In moments that called for decisiveness, his mind cried out. There is only one true course of action. This cry trumped all calculations. There was no way he could have imagined, as he hurtled towards his safe house, what sort of life he would be transitioning to. We come to know bridges well after we cross them, not before. We own an experience when we live it, just as one comes to know a woman when he is intoxicated by her and with her. He had no idea what the details of his life would look like. Whether out of ignorance or lack of experience, it is all the same. After all, ignorance, in the final analysis, is lack of experience. Know where you are stepping before you put your foot down. It was a bit of valuable advice that he admired from the prince of Arab storytellers, Naguib Mahfouz. But he now understood that you only know where you are stepping once you set your foot down, not before. He reached the address he had been given, the ground floor of an old two-story house. The top floor was inhabited by the owner of the house, Isa. The house was nestled in the middle of an orchard amid the type of fruit trees most often grown by houses far from the town center, and its remoteness gave it just the right touch for a safe house, like a bird's nest. The December rain was still coming down strongly upon his arrival that moonless night, giving the house a desolate and awe-inspiring look. A pitch-black night, torrential rain, a house surrounded by trees in a remote area far from all the noise and lights. All of this made Canaan feel like he was approaching a house of myths and legends full of jinn, ghosts, and wizards. That is how he imagined the house as he walked down the tiled passageway leading to the door. A sense of loneliness had begun to envelop him. He turned the key in the lock, entered, and shut the door behind him. Canaan, do you know what awaits you behind this door that you just closed? Chronicle this rainy December night, for your history begins as of now. On December 21st, 1982, a door opened and closed again. When it reopens, a most critical development will have occurred in your life. An opening and a closing of a life that is not a life, a world that is not a world. Make a record of what came before December 21st and what came after December 21st. This date will be for you what the birth of Christ was for humanity, a turning point from which people date events. Humanity has its calendar. You have yours. Canaan turned on the light. There were 2 small bedrooms and a kitchen and a bathroom. One of the 2 rooms contained a table and a worn-down couch that must have been sold for a cheap price after its owner grew tired of it. The other room contained 2 old beds with wooden frames. The beds were large and could accommodate a married couple comfortably without one complaining to the other for more space. There was an old rickety piece of furniture that had difficulty remaining upright on its 4 legs, which he decided was intended to be a wardrobe. There were also a number of chairs and small tables. The kitchen was small, with hardly enough room for 2 people to cook or wash dishes, and a small refrigerator which was sufficient for his needs at any rate. There was an oven and kitchen utensils and copper and zinc plates and other necessities. On top of the fridge were 2 bottles of wine of a popular variety produced by monks from the Latrun monastery. Canaan smiled. The comrades did not forget the approaching Christian New Year and its customary celebrations. Without wine, New Year's Eve loses its meaning. He opened one bottle and knocked back a cup of wine in one go, feeling the warmth in his belly. His intellectual nourishment had not been neglected either. There were a handful of novels and theoretical works, newspapers, magazines, notebooks, and pens. The most prominent nourishment was the fictionalized autobiography of Nikolai Ostrovsky, How the Steel Was Tempered, Kefa Sakina al-Faluth, which the party had printed and distributed in the homeland. He smiled again when he saw the book, remembering what he playfully nicknamed it out of admiration the first time he read it. How we irrigated the fava beans, Kefa Sakina al-Falut. The windows on both sides of the house looked out on the orchard, predominantly consisting of fig trees and white mulberry trees, and on the third side they overlooked an arbor of jasmine vines covering the passageway leading to the door of the house. The thick trees in the low-lying house made it difficult for sunlight to penetrate through the windows. Canaan completed his preliminary introduction to his safe house, and he stretched out on the bed after he had taken off his clothes and his wet shoes. Canaan, have you acquainted yourself fully with the contents of your house, its features and details? You will live in it for the years to come. You will memorize every nook and cranny. They will become the companions of your resistance and your life. Get well acquainted, Canaan, for now your journey has begun. A journey that you never suspected could last so long, until you come to love it like you would a woman. You will live through it withstanding all of your wounds. You will become intoxicated by the idea of possessing it. Just now you have closed the door to your house, and you do not know if it will ever open again. You closed it and turned your back on the life you had been living ever since the old French midwife pulled you out of your mother's womb. Now your party and comrades are the midwife, and you are opening up a new life with the closing of a door, and a willpower that you will build brick by brick. Get well acquainted, connect. Your future life will not be all adventure. Do you realize that Isa will monitor the sound of your urine as it flows from your bladder into the toilet bowl and will rush to knock on the door and subject you to interrogation? Get well acquainted so that with your comrades and your party you will become a hoe with which to dig the path of a novel revolutionary experience, not a destructive tool that tears down the walls of your reserve strength and makes you a burden on the organization on top of all its self-regenerating burdens. Yet he was still taken by the sweetness of adventure, its uniqueness and distinctiveness. He did not know what lay beyond the door. What meaning would his life acquire? When will the door open again?